Hi there and welcome to episode 174 of the ADHD Adults podcast. I'm James Brown, the man who dare not risk venturing into the sun or crossing water, depending on your Dracula mythology. And I'm joined, as usual, by Dr. Alex Connor, who is so risk-averse. His idea of living dangerously is leaving the house without his handkerchief. And, of course, Mrs. AuDHD, whose fondness of air-fried food means she's whisk-averse. I'm so sorry about that pun. I'm so sorry.
I
It's
don't
bad,
think you
isn't it?
can
And
whisk stuff with an air fryer.
no, I know, but you can whisk stuff if you're not using an air fryer consistently.
The
My
two are
God,
unrelated.
they are, yes. Anyway,
Both food.
Alex, hi.
Hello, Ludo, because this one's about the game
Oh my
Risk.
God, we
You
were
see,
talking about Labyrinth this morning.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
And
because Susie said hello, and she was being one of the little worms, and
yeah,
I said we could have a watch along to Labyrinth, and I would be Ludo if I dressed up, and you've just said Ludo. That was
that's
meant
so
to be.
apropos because today's about the game Risk. That's what this
I
episode
don't know
is.
what apropos means.
You don't need to. He's saying it to annoy me,
Yes,
obviously.
it is.
And brilliant joke bomb, by the way. This is Ludo the
Yeah.
game, not Ludo the character that's scared about going in the bog of
Oh.
eternal stench. I think, Alex, we've done a lot of episodes recently, and I think you must be getting tired because this one's obviously not about the game Risk, and
Yeah.
Ludo is also a game.
Don't know.
I've just said the wrong thing. I've read your bit, haven't I? Right. Okay. Apologies. Cut
That's
at
brilliant.
7:06.
No, don't cut. I love that.
Okay. I'll leave that in. Anyway, what I was meant to say, Alex, was you didn't think it
Yeah.
was about the game Risk. You couldn't think of a hello.
Brilliant.
Have you thought about professional podcasting? It kind of is in a way.
I haven't, no, believe it or
No.
not. Anyway, how
I
are you
wouldn't.
both, Mrs. AuDHD first?
Oh, well, tired. My shoulder's a bit sore, and so's my toe, weirdly. It's just started now. And I don't feel very prepared for this, but then I never really do I? How are
Never,
you?
No.
No.
And Alex, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you, James and Sam. Very nice to be here. I'm excited. We're
Nice.
coming to the end of ADHD month, or it's already is. I haven't actually checked when this goes out. And if there's one thing I think we've all learned is that we don't feel like doing anything for ADHD Awareness Month because of some kind of natural oppositional personality. The second it starts, I had so many plans and then like not doing it. I can barely write an update on Threads or whatever.
What plans did you have?
Well, just to do something, to like
Oh, just general do something.
Yeah, something.
I had no such plans.
One of whom has sent us a letter.
Oh, wow.
One of
Yeah.
what?
A plan.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to check who it's from.
Oh.
Yeah. It's from a Robert from Kidderminster, James. It says, yeah, I know, right? It says, I listened to your last episode or whatever you call them on positive illusory bias, and James always had the illusion that he could get a degree. So we made up that whole University of Wolverhampton prank, but it's got out of our hand. There is no such place. That's thought. Thanks, Robert. It does make a lot of sense, especially as my brother claims to work there and it doesn't
He
exist.
does.
You're better,
And it's such a
brother.
lovely building.
Mythical.
It is. You may get letters, Alex, and remember you were born in Rugeley, which is miles worse than Wolverhampton, mate.
It is. And the Colliers, oh, that's my spiritual home. We've had a real letter. May I read it out?
No.
You may.
Oh, thank you. It's from Cat with a K, kicking. It says, Dear Sam, James and Alex, I listened to your episode on superpowers and couldn't help but be struck by the similarities with calling Paralympian superheroes. When they first used that label at London 2012, I think it was meant to counteract the poor things, let them have the little game sort of image and say, look, give us the right accommodations and our elite athletes can be extraordinary. The trouble is, when you take that message too far, the rest of the world forgets the with the right accommodations part of the message. And that's how you end up in a situation where even someone like Tammy Gray Thompson, dame, finds herself having to crawl off a train at King's Cross in the same way. I expect the superpowers thing started with ADHD, presumably, with someone wanting to say, we're not stupid, we're not useless, give us the right help, and our talents can shine. And maybe some of the weird ways our brains work could even be a gift. But in a world where most people with ADHD aren't being given the right help and support, if any, it just becomes a reason not to offer support and leave people floundering and feeling even worse about themselves. Sorry, rant over. I'm so glad you're back, by the way. The world feels a better place when I can start the week listening to the three of you. Thank you. Sam?
Hats off. It's a lovely letter, but I'm just, Sam, what's it say in the script?
Yeah,
I'm not reading what it says on the script, you pair of bastards. Thank you so much, Kat. That's a brilliant letter.
It
We
is
could have done with you
absolutely
on the
lovely.
actual podcast.
It would be more accurate and balanced.
It would. Anyway, as usual, this Radiohead at any point in their career after OK Computer was released of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts.
I've heard of that band. I've heard of them.
Well done, Al.
Heard of them. We choose a theme. Last time around, I think, was about ADHD and positive illusory bias. At least Robert from Kidderman's thinks so. And this week, we're going to be discussing ADHD and risky behaviour, thanks to Gritty RSD and others who've suggested the topic or something vaguely like it. 3 parts, as usual, include the Bono of evidence, Alex the psycho education monkey,
I like Bono.
talking about I just knew you would. I knew you would. My God.
Well, I said like you too. I like 4 songs from the Greatest Hits album. That's what I mean, isn't it?
Talking about the evidence around the topic. In part 2, we'll give our personal reflections and something vaguely like tips on risky behaviour, and then we'll answer some of your questions sent in the final section to save any actual effort in writing content. So, Alex, if someone went down to your woods today, they'd better go in disguise, as it's very, very risky. Tell us about ADHD and risky behaviour.
One of the most ADHD things is when the second you said Alex is about to talk, Sam reached over, being recorded on video, and grabbed a nail file and started filing a nail like Mad Men, like a board. Was just brilliant.
I can't. If I've got a nick in my nail, it feels like actual physical pain, even though I logically know it's not. So I have to do it immediately.
Or even toenails. Like, I will not be able to think of anything else at all. Completely agree. Okay. Risky behavior, like leaving your nail half hanging off, is a natural part of the human experience and can be incredibly healthy. Vitamin R is sometimes said by psychological biologists to be at the value of risk as we grow up, rather than always being protected from everything. However, risky behavior can be associated with negative consequences, but at the same time has important societal benefits if you channel it productively, easy for you to say, or appropriately. So risk-taking is vital. It's part of human progress and innovation. We know that many of the advancements that have shaped how we live in technology and culture or social movements have come about because individuals or groups took risks, even if sometimes against conventional wisdom or safety. Change is made by unreasonable people. That's the old quote. While occasional risk-taking is part of normal development, decision-making, the consistent engagement in high-risk activities can be bad. What's a better word for bad? Detrimental. So when we say risky behavior, we're talking about actions that expose individuals to potential harm or danger. And that harm or danger could be physical or emotional or financial or social. Take your pick. For example, if James suddenly decided to go on holiday to Arizona, the sunniest place on the planet, he'd be risking combustion, a physical risk, because he's a Dracula. Do you see, James? Do you see what I've done?
Factor 500, Alex. Never leave home without it, or in my case, leave home without it because you forgot to pack it and packed 6 pairs of pants instead. What was my question? Why do people do it, Al? Why? That'll do.
Why do people do risks? Lots of reasons, James. Next.
Expand a bit.
I think you need to be a bit more patient. If you what I'm going to suggest is you shush. And if you're not watching this, can you imagine I'm doing my hands together like a shush sign for him? He'd like that, I think. Decisions that lead to risky behavior are usually characterized by positive short-term, but negative long-term consequences, usually. These decisions and behaviors are influenced by loads of factors that we have a biological predisposition, every human. There are social environments that encourage us to be risky or not, and there are cultural norms and gender norms, all sorts of things. Biologically, brain's reward system and centrally our tricksy old mate, dopamine. This is playing a critical role in risk-taking behavior, and particularly in the regulation of what we get pleasure and reward from. Cultural factors huge. Social media plays a risk in amplifying risk-taking. Individuals are often exposed to content that encourages daring or provocative or downright fucking stupid behavior for attention or approval, like snorting turmeric or something like that. Do not do that, or do whatever. Don't care. Interestingly or not, research suggests that, big shocker coming thing, men on average engage in more risky behavior than women. Not all of us. This is on average, right? So if you're thinking, well, I'm a woman, no, that's how averages work. It's statistically. All men are not taller than all women. It's just averages. It is on average, but it's thought to be influenced by both biological, random, and social factors. For instance, testosterone levels, for example, not just that. Here's an unrelated tip. Cut your balls off, and you'll not only be less risky, you'll also live around 7 years longer. And this is actual, but not super strong evidence from actual research on castrati, the masculine plural Italian noun.
I feel there's something passive aggressive in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words of that little section, Alex. But still, I'll ignore it. But it sounds ace so far. What are the downsides? By the way, it's important to point out that Sam thinks that ACE stands for automatic crow eater.
Yeah, that's what we said in school.
Oh,
I'm dead ace, I am. Oh, what? You're an automatic crow eater. Good one.
So you don't think it does. You're aware that it can be used like counterintuitively. Like we used to say a crap effort for the same thing. Yeah, you are.
No, automatic crow eater, because eating your own snot, it's not good, is it?
Wait,
that's what a crow is.
Wait,
Yes.
what the fuck are you talking about?
Crows
Crow?
are your bogies, yeah, crows.
The corvid bird.
Yeah, but it's also a bogey.
In your very specific
In Stoke.
year group at school.
Yes. Thank you.
Really genuinely regret asking, and yet needed to know.
You're welcome.
Downsides, James. There are many, I guess, potential downsides. As you know, you've experienced about 80% of them this morning by the black circles in your eyes. You have actually got slightly black circles around your eyes. Worried about it. Because you don't sleep properly and because of
Yeah, I
insomnia.
hasn't slept last night.
I know. Unbelievable. That's not relevant. I got distracted, genuinely distracted, instead of like pretend distracted. Right, boring list clacks on. Potential downsides, especially if you're doing too many risky behaviors. Substance use, physical health, addictions and behavioral habits that we can't break. Any kind of overdose, liver damage, impaired decision-making on substance use or other addictions like gambling and so on. Risky sexual behavior exposes people to the risk of sexually transmitted infections, STIs, unintended pregnancies, realizing you're having sex with James. And that is a cruel, sometimes the consequences of ADHD go too far, don't they? It's cruel and unusual. 3, financial risk-taking can lead to long-term consequences. You probably either of you didn't know, including financial instability, bankruptcy, stress. Not relatable in this virtual studio.
Not at all.
D, social risk-taking. And this involves actions that put your reputation or relationships or social standing at risk. Oh God, the amount of times I've said something impulsively in a social situation that, with hindsight, was massively inappropriate. The issue with social risk-taking is it sort of implies that there is a clear social contract. And if you're neurodivergent, you might not know what that is and what is social standing and what is inappropriate. Who fucking decides that? They're subjective to a certain degree. What's inappropriate can mean different things to neurodivergent people, although that was not a strong argument in James's trial for lewd behavior.
At least we tried. At least we argued it.
Yeah. and now he's banned from Toys R Us. That's why they went bust. So, or Toysaurus, as I thought it was called for a long time, not relevant. So, as a whole, risky behavior, whilst occasionally beneficial, hard to think of an example of beneficial, can often lead to consequences that can have both short-term and long-term impacts on your health and well-being, quality of life, blah, blah, blah,
I suppose you better do the thing. What about in the type of ADHD that's not super, Al?
Oh, the non-super power type, Bab. Oh, I forgot about the accent. Did you see? I had to try to adjust halfway through because every time that the super ADHD type comes up, I have to remind myself that we're not it. Well, you'll be shocked to know, Bab, that most research concerning risky behavior in ADHD has studied young population, young male populations, young white male you know where I'm going with this, right? Research needs to up its game, please. What do we know from what we've got? Firstly, ADHD is associated with a widespread pattern of risky behavior across activity domains. That is literally the name of the paper from 2019, activity domains. You want me to be specific, James, or Pacific,
Please.
as you say, is if you just don't. Compared with the general population, people with ADHD show increased engagement in risky behaviors such as smoking, substance abuse, dangerous driving, unprotected sex, such as not having holy water around if you're having sex with James. Actually, any water, he really can't swim. Studies on the link between... You can swim. Can you swim?
Well, float.
Studies on the link between just flapping your bat wings doesn't count. Studies on the link between ADHD and general risky behavior have reported higher engagement with risky behavior by adolescents with ADHD and a positive correlation between the amount of symptoms you've got and general risky behavior. And that's adolescents and adults as well. So there is that general risky behavior there are more of them the more ADHD traits you've got, but we can and will be a little bit more specific. Driving. Drivers with ADHD are almost twice as likely to have driving-related risky behavior and related adverse outcomes, presumably that means crashes, than non-ADHD drivers. Substance use, we know ADHD is associated with nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine use, or Tuesday, as James calls it, in adolescence or adulthood. Sex! I hear you ask, James. You're always shouting sex at me. Or one Tuesday 12 years ago, as James calls it, childhood ADHD has been associated with earlier sexual debut. Yeah, you heard. Debut. Are you allowing debut?
Yeah, I am. I'm in a good mood.
I don't like it. I take it back. Debut. A higher number of sexual partners, more sex outside a relationship, more sexually transmitted diseases, more partner pregnancies, and more high likelihood of teenage parenthood. For financial risk, less is known as few have looked. But I mean, just ask around, right? Adults with ADHD, hyperactive, impulsive symptoms, especially associated with risky financial behaviors like delayed credit card payments. And this already makes me feel a bit sick. And also carrying credit card balances over, having more debts in general.
This is all just fascinating, Al. Fascinating. But all this real world stuff surely can be influenced by other factors, confounding variables, those of us that pretend to be scientists call them. So what do we actually know about our kind of fundamental relationship with risk? Jesus, what came over me then? I almost asked like a professional question.
Ding!
It's a good thing, yeah. Sam, you missed that.
I can see
sorry.
where you're going with your question, James, because you wrote it in the script. I can see it. Risky behavior can be measured in actual controlled laboratory conditions. To do this, you might use a gambling component or in a lab. So research subjects, us, choose between several alternatives that differ in their amount and probability of gain or loss. Typically, subjects can choose between an absolutely certain alternative, less risky, with a little gain, and a probabilistic alternative delivering a greater gain. And guess which route we are more likely to take, us with ADHD? Well, not me. I wouldn't have gone in there. It's too dangerous. But researchers indicate that obviously groups with ADHD make more risky decisions, even in controlled environments.
And why, Alex? Why, pray tell?
Are you practicing for a part in like Amdram? I like it, but it's weird. You could play what's the name of the character? Bat-like vampire. Forgotten, doesn't matter. If you ignore the massive thing of just being impulsive, right? That's a big part of ADHD for almost all of us, not all of us. This may come down to those pesky, blooming, fucking executive functions and decision making.
Sorry, blooming fucking.
Sometimes not sometimes, always. Most of what I do is just to either annoy or make James laugh. And I think most people do things for wider engagement. It's a very specific niche audience I work with. Decision making when risk is involved requires goal-directed behavior. Does that sound familiar? So if you're going to make a decision and risk is involved, you need to know what the goal is. And that relies on executive functioning, like attention and response inhibition, stopping yourself from acting, right? And also working memory, the scribble pad. ADHD has consistently associated itself with loads of executive function deficits. You don't have to have them. That may explain why people with ADHD engage or are more likely to engage in risky behavior. Digging in further, differences between ADHD subjects and controls in those lab gambling tests are linked to response inhibition, but not linked to working memory or performance in some studies, whereas other research consistently shows that people with ADHD have similar or even longer deliberation times when making decisions in those controlled tests. You know, this idea of quick thinking, quick-witted, that everybody says people with ADHD are, unless they've met a load. Well, there are longer decision-making times in the lab. This does not support that previous inhibition hypothesis either, as that would suggest we're inhibited from thinking and we respond faster. Really is arguing that, like, contentious in literature. Where executive functions are almost certainly involved is in the ability to know what is risky and what isn't. Risk and benefit perception. Quite important, this. Like, yes, on average, we take risks for lots of reasons, but it's more that we don't really understand what is risky and what isn't, right? That's a big part of the executive function difficulty. Multiple studies have shown that the association between ADHD symptoms, the more you've got, and engagement in risk-taking was influenced by whether you can see the perceived benefits or not. What this means is that people with ADHD do tend to engage in risky behaviors because they find such behavior particularly appealing, rather than because of the risk per se. So it might not be gambling not for the money, but because it's something, in it. I just want to feel alive, drinking and the drugs and everything. We're not. Remember that this is a neurological condition that means we can't get activation of the reward and pleasure that at the level that other people do. So it's kind of no wonder, really. Even with a typical level of risk perception, which many of us do not have anyway, you see increased perceived benefits of risk taking, and that can tilt the decision on those scales towards, yes, I will smuggle cocaine on a flight to Ibiza, even though they already have that there, and it's got to go above. Then thank you, Sam. And then finally, we have dopamine. Whether you like or even believe the idea that we are dopamine seeking as a description of ADHD, we would probably describe it as trying to reach a dopaminergic threshold, which describes a type of nerves or neurons rather than the dopamine itself. But that's because we're massive geeks. Anywho, the anticipation of reward that we can get from engaging in risky behaviors, and that can lead to enough motivation, so hits those thresholds, to repeat and even extend them into a pattern of behavior, risky behavior.
I liked that, Al, and you know how much it pains me to say that. We'll take a break and we'll be back in about 10 seconds to give some personal reflection. Sam's are going to be brilliant because she takes more risks than any other human that's ever lived. See you in a bit.
Bye.
No. I know I did that. That was weird.
Alex, hi.
Aight. What's up? Hello, Governor.
Welcome back to episode 174 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we are talking about ADHD and risky behaviour. James, go.
In part 2, presumably.
Oh, in part 2, where we talk about personal reflections. James, go.
Go. Okay. Fuck me. Where do I start? Yeah, we're slow on the dings today. Let's up our game, lads. Let's up our game on the dings. This is going to sound, I don't know, odd, mad, stupid, thick. I'm all of those things. I
are.
feel immune to risk, if that makes sense.
No,
And
it makes
oddly-
no fucking sense.
It
What do
makes
you
sense.
mean?
What I mean is that there are almost no activities that I perceive as being risky.
Oh, yeah.
and
No.
therefore what I find interesting about the psychoeducation bit, the benefits thing being more powerful than the risk thing, I thought was really interesting. But I oddly don't even consider the benefits when I engage in risky behavior. I have, I think, what you might call a high threshold for that sounds risky. And it takes something that is ludicrously risky for me to start considering whether it is risky and what the benefits are. You know, I've got to be careful how I say this, but repeatedly smuggling things. You know, when I was younger,
Muggling,
distributing.
are you?
Yeah, I am.
Repeatedly what?
Smuggling. Not muggling, smuggling. You know,
Oh.
distributing items that might be considered illegal, having sex with someone while their partner was asleep in the same bed.
She didn't mind.
Almost. I think they probably both minded. Almost being tempted to cheat on a close friend with their partner who was pushing for that, and luckily I managed to pull out of that one. Ding.
Ding.
But at the
Massive
time,
ding, tiny ding.
exactly. But at the time, none of this seemed risky to me. None of it seemed risky, and that's why I think that the benefits and the risk perception side of it, I think I'm fucked with both, because for me, I genuinely cannot perceive what is risky and what is not, unless it's so ridiculously risky that it kind of hits that threshold of, oh, that might be a bit risky. In terms of a tip, I'm obviously not the person to give one. Ding, ding, double ding. So I actually Googled this, as clearly I've got no idea. And one website said, and I'm not joking, develop executive functioning skills as an approach for dealing with risky behavior.
Oh,
that's
that
the
is-
tip.
Why didn't?
That's a brilliant tip.
Ah, piss flat. So
I
it
might
didn't
do that, you know.
Fucking hell.
Exactly.
Pay attention to things.
Yes.
Just
yes.
focus.
Have some working memory.
Yeah.
If I do have a tip, ding, and I
You do
suppose I
not.
do, it's trying to put in a pause, and this is something that we often talk about when it comes to impulsive behavior, but it can be the same with risky behavior. Trying to put in any amount of pause that can allow you to reflect or to allow you to be distracted can put a barrier in place of that risky decision, and that's all I've got, because let's face it, I don't really know what risk is. Sam, go.
Oh, that's good. That doesn't. Oh, hang on, I've lost it again. Hang on,
Lost
I'm going to
what?
get it. The script.
You see, what you've done here is you've added something to the script which you've never tried before.
I
which
know,
think
I
it's
know.
good, but
It's just not working. Yes. Oh, hang on. I think I found it. Yes. Yes, I
Got
was
that.
typing it actually while you were doing the psychoeducation. I was typing just
you finished
random
filing your
things I could
fucking
think
nails,
of.
had you?
Yeah. Yeah, I have all of this. And like you, I don't think of the risk or the benefit until sometimes afterwards. Afterwards, I think, oh God, that was a bit stupid, wasn't it? Normally when something really bad happens because of what I've done. But like substance misuse, when you mentioned that, that's a tick. Although actually, I've never been susceptible to peer pressure, so I'd always watch and I'd only take part if it looked fun. Ding. So maybe it's not that one. Even though I took part, I did
No,
think
because
about.
you knew it was terribly bad for you, right?
Oh no, it wasn't that. I just wanted to. I didn't want to do something that didn't look fun.
Yes, but
So
when you did do it, you didn't. It wasn't. It was purely because you didn't measure the risk. You just fuck it. I'll do it.
Yeah, it looked fun. So there wasn't a
Yeah.
risk.
What?
What?
Wait.
Risk-
What? Say that again. I liked it. It looked fun. So there
It looked
wasn't-
fun, so there wasn't a risk.
There
What's the
wasn't a
risk?
perceived risk. There was definitely a risk.
Yeah.
Right,
What-
yeah.
What do you
And
think
risky
risk
sexual
means?
behaviour. Again, I didn't start until late because it was also completely fucking terrifying. And I didn't have babies because I can't, but all the rest of that tick. And I won't go into things because I'll just be here all day. But financial risk, tick. As soon as I could get credit, I've just been in debt ever since, and it's just got worse and worse and worse. And just random things that I thought of, always just get into random people's cars if they offered me a lift. Even as a child, I would do that. Get into adults' cars if they said, "Do you want a lift?" I would give lifts to random strangers that asked me if I was at a petrol station, a train station, wherever I was. And one of them, I actually, as he was getting into the car, I thought, oh, I think he's got a gun. I still let him in, even though I thought he had a gun because I don't know. I went to some random couple's house when I was a teenager to have naked pictures taken in their front room because they said they were looking for a model. They weren't professional photographers, I
Do
realised
you not
afterwards.
think?
No, they definitely weren't. They didn't even have any equipment thing.
And it wasn't a house.
Me and my brother, and it was in a front room, yeah. Me and my brother used to meet people when we were children on the CB radio, and we'd go round to their houses. They were adults, we were children. Didn't perceive any risk there at all. I took my little brother on train lines when he was a toddler and actually nearly got him killed because I dropped him in a tunnel. I jumped from the window of a 5th story flat without bending my legs when I landed because I hadn't thought it through. I just jumped. And pole all the time. I'm terrified of moves that I shouldn't be terrified for. Like there's nobody else would find them terrifying. But all the moves that everybody else finds terrifying, I don't have a problem with doing backflips and drops and all of the other things, no problem with. But putting the pole behind my knee, that is fucking terrifying.
Well, ding.
What about you, Alex?
Just before we go to Alex.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I need a breath.
What?
Exactly. The reason that I find learning about Sam so fascinating, and when we've made friends and she's told them these stories and they've looked at her with sheer horror on their faces,
Yeah.
and not really known, is she telling the truth or making up these ridiculously overblown stories? It's all true.
Yeah.
It's
I
incredible.
got loads of them. They were just the few that I could think of while you were doing psychoeducation.
I spent a weekend in Amsterdam with your family, and it's fucking obvious it's true because of the things I heard and saw on that weekend. My God. Is it both of you? Is it that kind of want to feel alive thing because of
No,
anhedonia
I
and a
don't.
lack of?
It doesn't feel risky. It doesn't feel like a risk. I just do stuff. I don't think, and then afterwards I'll think, oh, actually, that was really stupid. But at the time, it doesn't feel like
There's
I do.
no
I don't
risk
get that
perception.
adrenaline rush, like, oh, I'm going to do something risky at all, because to me, there is no
It
risk.
wasn't risky, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a really boring bit, haven't I? Because I'm risk averse.
Yeah,
And
but
we
that's
talk about
really
it a
good
lot.
because it shows the other side.
It's not as James Dean as I'd like to be, though, is it? You know, I do lots of little risky things, which are look, you and all your it was always my choice not to engage in risky sexual behavior, but it was my second choice, if I'm honest. And, so part of it was I was just completely confined to a geeky like interior and exterior that meant I wasn't exposed to stuff. But I've always done substance use, not abuse. Always used it correctly, but a lot of it. But that was the opposite. That wasn't risky as well because I was really careful. I was brutally careful. I used to use a really good friend of mine who's now a professor at Fake Wolverhampton, who helped me understand what was it. You know, I would ask you really specific questions, wouldn't I, about that you didn't give a shit about yourself, but you were very helpful. It's boring being dry now, but much better. But I do lots of little things. Like I'll always put stuff down, and I'll just lean that thing there for a second, and it will fall off inevitably, and glass will smash all the time. That's 10 times a day I have to be very, very controlled, or I'm absolutely fucked. But I also just don't ever take risks. And I've got people like you in my life that help me take risks, and my wife, both of whom ignore me most of the time, which is exactly what I need. What was that? A potential
I just thought
thing?
when you said "and my wife," I thought we were going down the route towards a ding, but you diverted away in time.
I did also ding. And when you really want to be cool, the worst thing is that I have, the 5 big personality types, which are probably fairly broad, overly broad, but quite accurate. Well, Google them, because Google gives you 9 with a little box that says +1 more for 5 personality types. And I really like that. But the one that's really quite strong in me and makes me a wanker is neuroticism. So I am neurotic.
Yeah, you are, yeah.
I know. And it's not nice because that's not cool, but I am neurotic. So even when I was always drinking, always doing drugs, I couldn't help but have that health anxiety. My anxiety was always been there, always probably. Well, it's a lot less now, actually, but since it's all about control. Neuroticism doesn't lend itself to risk-taking in my experience.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I do have a tiny follow-up question. Tried to work in that ding, but couldn't. Obviously, we've talked before about your financial risk aversion, and there are deep-seated reasons behind that. You've talked in the past about things that happened when you were a child when it came to money.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of your risk aversion might come from kind of formative experiences, and how much might be, like you say, your personality type. And again, because we're all different with ADHD, it might not be the ADHD.
I don't think it is. I don't think it's the formative thing. I think it's the ADHD. I like it when you're playing with your mic while we're
Sorry. I've got a really itchy ear.
What you should do is grab the mic while you're removing your headphones.
It's because I have to wear these headphones.
We've got other microphones, but that's because she moves around so much and doesn't realise there's a mute button on the picture of her which she can press. Obviously, yes, good.
I'll pay you £1,000 to have Sam's mute button that I have control of. So I don't think it's my formative life, because I look at my brothers and they have the same upbringing. That I think it's my lack of risk perception. So you'll sometimes say, "Oh, let's pay £30 for something, won't you, that we need for our business?" And I say no, and I have this immediate opposition. God, what if it isn't the right thing? And I have to go away and think, Alex, James knows this shit. He's always right. Is it possible you've over worried about £30 here, which you have got? Is that possible? And I have to go do what James says, but it's like a visceral. I can't really understand. It's just like Sam said, I do the exact same thing, except I always perceive all risk as negative and not positive, which is depressing. I'm not that cool.
No, but it is good though, because you're not in shitloads of debt like us.
No, that's true.
That's amazing.
I am wealthy.
It's a good thing that you. It is a good thing.
It is. No, it is.
And it adds balance to the podcast. Anyway, we've got time for a quick game, Alex.
Yeah,
we haven't. I've just had a look.
I am making them easier and easier every time because it's getting ridiculous. So I recently went down to give a little talk. I do little talks.
What have you little talks?
And this was for Pat, DJ Derek Bowie, for his ADHD support group in Milton Keynes.
DJ Derek Bowie.
Yes, and I took down some very expensive microphones because we filmed it, and then realized when I got back that I'd left one there, or that was what was apparent. But what had actually happened, Alex? Had I in fact left it there in Milton Keynes, which is fucking frustrating? That's option 1. Option 2, my God, I'm outing myself here. Did I put it in my bum bag and leave it in the car? And you did like this game being about things that are put up my bum. That's as close as I can get having a bum bag. And option 3, did I have it all along in the bag with all the other filming stuff?
Was it a bum bag?
But you can't get that wrong. How can you get that wrong?
I haven't asked yet.
He's asking a question about the third one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. No, it wasn't a bum bag. It was a big fucking hell. Good. You may even get this right now because I've
Yeah.
removed one. It's a 50-50.
Right.
It's a 50-50.
Oh, I don't like it. I've forgotten what the first one was because I was thinking about how DJ Sessions is also DJ Derek Bowie in your weird little head.
Yes.
So I don't know what the first one was. I don't think it's the second one because you just explicitly told me it wasn't. Probably. I'm not 100% sure though that I'm not going to choose it. So you always had it in a bag. Fuck off.
Yeah, you've won. Well done. I think we need to.
Wow,
We
well
need to.
done.
I know.
Thank you, Sam. Namaste.
I know. With some help, but on that
Agree
gloriously
to disagree.
celebratory note for Alex, we'll take a break and we'll be back to answer some of your questions. Not our questions, Sam. Some of your questions as our listeners.
Just to
in
reiterate,
part
we
3.
did not write those questions.
Okay,
See you in a bit.
bye. Yes.
Trumpet.
Welcome back to episode 174 of the ADHD Adults podcast. We have been talking about ADHD and risky, not just sexual behavior. But as always, in part 3, some other people have written questions and sent them to us, and we take ownership of those, but read them out ourselves. Do you see how that traditionally works? I think we have a question. Sam, have you got a question for us? Have you got one?
Yes, I've got a question from Cosmic Bellend.
Hi, Cos.
I hear that for an ADHD assessment, you need to provide evidence that you had the symptoms before the age of 12. What do you do if your parents won't cooperate with this? Thank you,
What a
Cosmic.
really great question.
It is a good
It is.
question.
I knew
Do
would
one
like
of you
to
want
have
to
a
answer
crack
it,
at
or shall I?
Go on, Sam.
No, yeah, go, Sam. Go, Sam. Go.
Yeah,
Sam.
we
Go.
can have not everybody can get evidence from parents. It's enough if you can recollect things that happened when you were younger, or if you've got school reports or anything really, and you don't have to have had all of the symptoms before the age of 12, just several of them. So they don't expect you to remember every single, like all of the symptoms that you've got as an adult that you had as a child, just several of them. So if you can just recollect that, oh yeah, I remember when I was at school, I was always getting told off because I never handed my work in on time, or I was always forgetting things that I needed for lessons or whatever. If you can recollect it, that's normally enough for them, because not everybody has got parents. So not everybody can have that. Would you like to add anything to that, either of you?
Mainly that it's
No.
excellent and exactly right. If you want, do you acknowledge, like, I struggle with the word evidence because in my neurodivergent brain, it means like scientific fact type evidence, but it
Right.
doesn't.
Oh
Though.
no, it doesn't to me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So circumstantial evidence, right? What you remember is evidence, but I find that really hard to understand. Maybe it's the scientist in me. I don't know. Ding. And a bit ding. And the other thing is, if you're struggling, which loads of us are, with remembering what your past was like, not a fucking clue. Most of us say. I think most, is that fair? One thing I do is ask myself interview style questions. You can ask AI to make these for you. So instead of going, "What was I like?" No, don't know. Say, what was one time that you struggled to pay
Finish the
attention at
sentence.
school. But yeah, I got distracted by a bloody tissue. What was one time? Choose a teacher? What was the name of one teacher you know? What would they have said about you? Anything that's personal that can, because your memories are there. They just need triggering with something emotional, something personal. So ask yourself interview questions like, can you think of an example at home, at school? Try an age, a couple of. What about when you were, under 8, or when you were 10, or those kinds of questions can trigger memories that you might think, I haven't got a fucking clue, mate. That's all. It's me.
Yes.
Sam, one of us, who has to go over to Alex? One of us does.
Oh, Alex, do you want to ask a question next? Is that what you're waiting for?
No, I do not. Go fuck yourself.
All right, then I'll read it. This is from...
It's quite nice. It's from Vicky Vet, who may or may not be a veteran or a vet. It says, "Hi guys, I have 2 completely unconnected questions. 1, I keep seeing social media videos about dopamine addiction, in rabbit ears, and or procrastination as a trauma response. Are we dopamine addicts? Is any of this true?" And 2, how come Mrs. AuDHD never ever interrupts the psycho education monkey gap? Thanks, love your work. Let's do 2 first. Sam, when he says,
Because
Alex
I
the
know
psycho,
that gap's meant to be there. Whereas every time you take a breath, I think,
Yeah.
what has happened? Oh my God, this has been an eternity. Is there a storm? What's going on?
that has
But I
happened.
know that gap's supposed to be there. That's why for that one.
Fact. And 1, I've already forgotten. James, dopamine addiction, you know this.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the terms that really fucks me off, to be honest, alongside kind of dopamine. We talked about dopamine detox
No,
recently.
you can't come into my house.
This idea that
Oh,
Dracula.
yes, this idea that we can be addicted to a neurotransmitter that is continuously being produced and signaling. Remember, we don't have less of it. It is there working. It just doesn't work as effectively. That we can be addicted to it is scientifically illiterate. Now, if you reword it to be kind of addicted to behaviors that give us dopamine, you're starting to get into areas that are more contentious and kind of could be spoken about. But no, dopamine addiction isn't true. We are more likely to have behavioral addictions with behaviors and also with substances that give us dopamine. That's a different thing from dopamine addiction. And remember, a lot of the time, for many of us, when we engage in activities that give us dopamine, it's not about thrill seeking. It's just about quietening down all that fucking noise, all the racing thoughts and the intrusive thoughts and the domestic anxiety to give us a bit of inner peace. Just quickly, the procrastination as a trauma response. It absolutely is one of the symptoms of having experienced trauma, so it can be. But procrastination happens in the general population. It obviously happens in people with ADHD. There are lots of different reasons, whether they're emotional, whether they're executive function based, and it's often about avoiding or pushing anxiety down the road from engaging with the task now to, well, I'll do it in the future. But so it can be a trauma response.
And can I just remind everyone that people with ADHD face more trauma? Fact. Fact. Even as children. Of course we do. Our parents weren't diagnosed with it, and it's massively, massively genetic. So they're struggling like shit. They weren't supported. Their behaviors aren't. It's not like ADHD isn't what some like half-arsed wannabe psychiatrists who aren't say. It's not because your parents are stressed. That's not true. It's incorrect. It doesn't help your home life and it causes trauma, but ADHD is predominantly a neurological condition, and so you are likely to be brought up and in the company of people who are unsupported, untreated. You are likely to have behaviors which are not tolerated in society as much as the rest of the population. So you're going to be told off more. You might even face abuse more. We are more likely to be the victims of trauma because we have ADHD, not the other way around. It's wet pavement causes rain. That's the problem here. James, calling somebody scientifically illiterate is brilliantly brutal. It's a really awful thing to say, and I loved it.
Can I just gently challenge you on the trauma?
Yeah. And you know, we have a very slight disagreement, and that's healthy, right?
No, absolutely. There is evidence that trauma can cause. It's confusing because trauma can cause lifelong ADHD-like symptoms, and adverse childhood events cause neurodevelopmental changes. So it's so mixed up, and we know that those adverse childhood events increase the risk of ADHD. So if they happen before the symptoms appear, in some people it absolutely can, but it's just the symptoms cross over. It's a bi-directional relationship. It's a mess.
But most ADHD is not caused by that. The majority of ADHD is neurological.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah,
I've got a question. Shall I go forward with it?
Please do. You don't need to be invited.
No, I don't.
He definitely does. I like that, Sam. It's a callback joke, not like you.
It is. So this is from Lana. Hi, Lana. And Lana says, do you have any evidence on task switching? I've had to hide a meltdown. Lana continues, I've had to hide a meltdown when I was told to switch tasks at work when I was hyper-focused and the task I was told to do wasn't even ready for me to start straight away. There are other times where I'm just relaxing or having executive dysfunction and can't move off the sofa. How do you cope?
Not well.
What?
No,
Mm.
not great. Not great, Lana. Because we have the incurable condition of ADHD. It's a superpower. James?
Do you want to take this one, James?
I can do, because I'm quickly getting something up because I'm going to forget what the 4 stages are. But there are 4 stages of task switching. And they
yeah.
involve disengaging from the task, switching your attention, engaging in the second task, and then fully engaging and therefore removing the distraction of the
So you
first
have to
task.
neurologically stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you have
And-
to think about another one and start the
and then you have to shut off the thoughts and the pull of the first one, and then fully engage with the fourth one. It is fundamentally one of the 2 big issues with attention: allocating attention to tasks we intend to, and switching attention from one task to another. It is difficult, it's challenging. How I do it, it kind of has to be belt and braces for me, which is
also ding.
first of all move. And I know what you said, when you can't move off the sofa, that's challenging, but one of the best tips for task switching is get up and move. If it's something where you're hyper focusing and you've been made aware that you need to do something else, even it is something at work that wasn't ready for you, get up and move, because that helps break that cognitive hyper focus. If it's a situation where you're kind of stuck on the sofa and can't move, that's obviously more challenging, but use the resources around you, people to help give you motivation, or to help give you a nudge. Whatever reminders, visual or otherwise, can help you to try and at least acknowledge, I should be stopping this task. But it is fundamentally a core aspect of inattentive ADHD.
It really is. Can I add what the new task is and why you should do it emotionally, not just because somebody wants you to? That's irrelevant to ADHD, isn't it? Because I know why I've got to do this. I know exactly what that task is. If it's not very clear to you what a win, you've got to be able to win with ADHD. That's what that's what that dopamine addiction is alluding to, really, isn't it? Is we have to trigger dopaminergic activity, which means we need to feel like we've won something. And just doing, if you know what you can do, you know how to check task done. That's it. Can I add one thing? Sorry, I know I'm blathering on too much, but when we switch tasks, any human, not just ADHD, and even if you're thinking about one thing to change to thinking about another, there is a gap in the middle where you're not thinking about either. And this is why the idea that ADHD are fast thinkers or fast processors is so incorrect based on the evidence, because we might think about 10 things in 10 minutes, or in 1 minute, actually. But that's not a minute's worth of stuff, because there's all those gaps adding up. But somebody who isn't ADHD, who thinks about one thing for the whole minute, has thought more and faster, just less distracted. So it really is important to be aware that on average, we process slower, not faster. It's a jolly thing.
I think as well, that's awful that they made you switch tasks when you were in hyperfocus. I don't know if they're aware of your ADHD, but if maybe not actually, because you had to hide a meltdown. But that's really awful. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah,
And
really.
times when you're on the sofa and you're not able to move, I normally give myself something rewarding to do, which gets me up. Because
Like
if I get
what?
up and like putting well, you can't see here, can you? Like, I
No.
love art. So putting a picture up on the wall, or doing a bit of crochet, or going outside and looking at bees, or spinning around until I feel dizzy, or eating something that feels or tastes nice in my mouth. Anything that makes me feel lovely or gives me reward, that can get me moving. And then sometimes I can get on and do something that's not so nice and sandwich it.
Ding.
Definite ding. James, when Sam just said, and also that sounds awful, I'm sorry, didn't cross either of our minds, that, did it? That's
No.
that's the power
No.
of Sam.
I know.
Oh, today, my father-in-law hit himself with something quite hard and bled, and I felt very slightly how that might feel. And I couldn't believe that's empathy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hit
yeah,
himself.
First, yeah, 300 times with a hammer. No, and that I had some empathy today, and
Well
emotional empathy.
done.
Thank you.
How did it
Well
feel?
done.
Obviously not very nice.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it hurt. I genuinely, I did not like that. Yeah, I'd much rather just tilt my head to the side and watch like normal.
Anyway, shut up, the pair of you. That was episode 174 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we talked about ADHD and risky behavior. If you want to get in touch to either send us a letter, to send in a topic suggestion or a question, you can do so on the website www.theadhdadults.uk. We will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Trigger warning klaxon. Klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon. Klaxon, 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 klaxon.
I had a revelation the other day. What if you actually don't taste anything? You just hear how something should taste, and then you imagine that it tastes like that. So you eat pineapple, and once you heard that pineapple should be a little bit sweet and a little bit better, so that's how it tastes to you.
Bye all.